Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Coffee and Conversation right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and today I am pleased to introduce Rob Rademaker from Luxury Hospitality Management. How are you?
I'm doing really good, thank you.
Now, Rob, you are like the peer when it comes to bartending, mixology, and I want to get into that in a little bit because off air we were talking about some topics that just kind of frankly blew my mind,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
didn't realize that they existed. But first off, where are you originally from, and what did you want to be as a kid?
That's a pretty long story. I'll try to make it short. Originally from Amsterdam, born and raised. I'm half Serbian, half Dutch. My mother, she came from Serbia when she was 18 to Amsterdam to marry my father. This was, yeah, a long time ago. I'm 35 right now. And actually, I started up trying to be a garbage man when I was really, really small. I thought that was the coolest stuff that there was in the world. But obviously, then I had to go to school, and my perception changed. I didn't like school that much. I started working in hospitality industry instantly when I was 15 as a dishwasher. Then I moved my way up to assist the chef as well with preparing the plates, making the food. At one day, we had a sick person in service. And I actually kind of liked my small space in the kitchen. I was like, man, this is where I belong. That's all good. But they threw me into public and they told me, Rob, walk the plates, talk with the guests. And actually, I really, really liked that. And from that moment on, I joined a butler team, and this team was reinforcing different five-star hotels in Amsterdam. And this I did this for a period of 5 years, and this is how I got in contact with the bar. This I first as a waiter in the bar, and then started making the drinks as well. And I really created a passion and really fell in love with the whole bartending scene and the ambiance, and yeah, being on stage, creating in front of the guest, personalized and customized drinks for them. So then I joined a cocktail agency called the Fabulous Shaker Boys. Pretty funky name. But they were supplying private events, luxury events with customized cocktails, which I enjoyed a lot. And then I became a little bit naughty, and I told the guys, you know what, guys, I'm going to take a year off. And I didn't take a year off. I worked my butt off 7 days a week, 16 to 18 hours a day. Serious. I was sleeping just a few hours on the island of Crete. And I opened up my own bar. I could rent a place for one season, and I opened it up. Huge pool bar, big pool, and we had parties during the day, movie nights at night, and even later that night, more partying. Did that for, yeah, roughly a year, and then I came back and I was like, okay, this is cool. This is the business that I want to be in hospitality and with people. But I wanted to take it to the next level. So I applied for a large liquor company, which is called Bols, Bols. And I started as a trainer to educate bartenders, mainly in Holland to begin with. And within 2 years, I became global brand ambassador for the company, traveling the world for another 5 years to do education on bartending, and which was super cool. I learned a lot, loads of people, loads of different cultures as well. But after a while, it becomes really intensive. Just living from your suitcase, in and out of planes, hotels, etc. So I took a step back, back to Amsterdam, and started working for a five-star luxury hotel, the Amstel Hotel. Set up the whole bar. We actually got awarded as well as the best new bar in Holland back then, which was really, really cool. Then I worked for another bar and restaurant, and then I started working for a training company, which is called Isaac Academy here in Holland, as the head trainer. This is also the moment that I got introduced to luxury hospitality, and I opened up my own training company roughly a year and a half ago to support large liquor companies and distribution channels on creative processes, activation, and obviously training of their staff and sales reps, and I do a lot of work for LH now as well, for luxury hospitality. So in a nutshell, really, that is me, and that's how how I'm where I'm right now.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, when you talk about becoming a bartender, I don't think people actually realize what exactly goes into being a bartender because you're almost like a psychotherapist as well as mixing these amazing drinks and doing it with style and with flair. How do you manage all that and how can you teach that?
Well, you have to, if you want a good bartender, but especially if you just want to do a good job in hospitality, you have to be a little bit schizophrenic. And schizophrenic, as in you need to have multiple personalities to suit different needs and to serve different guests. You always need to be able to have that ability to level yourself with any type of guest that you have in front of you. So I think that's number one, which is important. Second, obviously, your technique needs to be good, right? And technique is everything we can learn students, or everything you can learn from a book or from a trainer or from watching other people. This is technique. I like to describe our profession basically with three topics, and one of them is technique, everything you can learn. Second is passion or love of what you're doing, right? I cannot teach anybody to love what they're doing. I always try to motivate people to love what they're doing, but you can't really learn that, right? So when you have technique on a high level, you have love and the passion on a high level, you get to the next thing is that's the art of doing your job, the professionality, that you're really enjoying the skills that you have and the passion that you have, and that you don't need to think about it anymore. How do I pour this wine, or how do I serve the tray, or how do I bring this to the guest super fast? When you have time in your head not to think about that anymore, then you get to the next level, which is really pure enjoyment. That you can work another day in your life and don't call it work really. So yeah.
I think that's probably what most people aspire to do.
Yeah.
Now, mixology. What is mixology?
Good question. It sounds really funky. Why? Because there's a thing in the bartending community going on, and people say, "What do you do?" And they say, "I'm a mixologist." Okay, you're a mixologist. Some people say I'm a liquid chef. Some people say I'm a bartender. Some people have different names, cocktail professors, and that kind of stuff. First of all, mixology is the technique on to create balance, to understand your ingredients, and to create a drink basically, which suits every moment of the day, or for every specific moment of the day, you can create a specific drink for specific needs from guests, with new techniques, with old techniques, with fresh ingredients, homemade. And at the moment that when you present the drink on the table, you can tell at least the same stories about that drink compared with a wine sommelier that can tell everything about the vineyard and about the grapes and everything. This is what mixology basically means. In a nutshell, it's understanding drinks in the broadest sense of the word, because everybody can read a recipe. You know, when you have a guest asking you, "I would like to have a corpse reviver #2, please bring it on." You're like, "Corpse reviver #2, what the hell is that?" And then they start searching it up, seeing the ingredients, and you can follow the recipe. But when you don't have a clue exactly when you're going to taste the drink before it's going into the glass, what to look for, and what maybe to change if something is not correct. So it's really the art of creating balance in drinks with which has a story. So yeah, that's mixology.
So, would making drinks be a bit more like baking rather than cooking as a chef? Because I know with baking, you have to have everything perfect. Otherwise, it won't turn out the way it's supposed to. Whereas when you're a chef, you can, one chef will add a bit more of this spice or a bit more of that spice, and will still create an absolutely amazing thing. When you mix drinks, is that how it works? Like, does it have to be exactly perfect, or is it more like creating something with your own taste and flair?
I think it's closer related to cooking than baking, because baby baking, it's all about the exact measurements.
Yeah.
But obviously, we're working with a lot of fresh ingredients, and they always change because of different seasons and different qualities of limes or lemons or even herbs or spices. No, it's all about before you get it into the glass, taste it, analyze it, check what you can change. It's not about when you do a recipe 100% exactly what it says in the recipe that is going to be perfect, the drink. It's really about adjusting all the time. So more to cooking and the creativity. I mean, a chef should be able to cut with precision, all the mise en place, the stuff that they want to use, the ingredients. As a bartender, we need to pour very accurate, and we need to create things not behind the scenes, but in front of the guests as well. And obviously you have classic recipes with classic cocktails that you need to follow that exactly. But then still, what type of ice are you using? Are you having good ice or low quality ice? Then you need to change your whole approach to make the drink taste good as well. What is the temperature around you? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it dry or very humid? Or these are all factors which are really, really important. And a lot of different brands as well that you have out there, right? When you look to a Manhattan cocktail, for instance, one of the ingredients is vermouth, which is aromatized wine, fortified, and it's infused with spices. But only within the vermouth category, you have a lot of shitty stuff and a lot of good stuff. But some vermouths, sweet vermouth, they can be very mellow, or they can be super spicy and heavy in flavors. So in the end, it's all about the balance that you get into the drink. And recipes usually don't say the exact product that you need. They will say sweet vermouth, for instance.
It's fascinating what really goes into making a drink. I mean, I think most people would just think that, oh, well, it's a rum and coke, or, whatever drink. I'm not a cocktail drinker, but whatever drink that you order at when you go to the bar, you don't realize that there's actually this much thought that goes into creating what sits in front of you as an end result.
And most guests, they don't realize it either. What the thing that surprises me is that on some yachts that I did training, not all of them, but some of them, when I asked the crew to make a gin and tonic, I said, guys, just make a gin and tonic how you would make it for a guest, and let's analyze and see what we made. The quality is so different. The type of gin, the type of tonic. I mean, there's so many people using Schweppes and just the big brands as a tonic, which if you take the mainstream product, is a horrible product to use in your gin and tonic because it ruins the gin flavor. There's so much chemical sugars in there and all that kind of stuff. So choosing the right quality ingredients is important, but also ice. Sometimes there's 2 ice cubes used, and then within 5 minutes you got a ton of melting water in your drink. And obviously you need to use a lot of ice and good quality ice, not the flaky stuff or the little ice shot glasses that you see getting from some machines, which is hollow ice, which breaks up and just dilutes the drink super fast. So there's a lot of there goes a lot of thought into it. I mean, I'm doing it for 18 years now, and I am still learning every day. And I'm sure if I could become 200 years old, there's still a lot still to learn. So, yeah.
So what would you recommend as a tonic?
Try the work that I do also here in Holland, in Belgium, is for a brand called Fever Tree. Fever Tree was one of the first tonics, or the tonic brands basically, which in 2005 launched the world's first tonic with 100% natural ingredients. So I'm not saying use that one. I mean, you're really, really safe with Fever Tree, obviously. But there are many brands out there which state 100% natural ingredients, spring water, perfect carbonation, because carbonation in a tonic, if you look to the big multinationals, they infuse the CO2, the bubbles, at a room temperature. And if you infuse room temperature, the CO2 into a liquid, you'll get very big bubbles, resulting in a lot of splash texture in your mouth, or the bubbles, they pop open, and you will not taste anything in the product, in the gin and tonic. When you take a little bit more effort and you put more money into the production process, and when you cool down the liquid and then you force the CO2 in it, it can pack a lot more CO2, but the texture of the bubble is going to be champagne-like mouthfeel, which is really what you want, basically, in a gin and tonic, because the spirit needs to stay alive, literally, in a gin and tonic. So yeah, that's just one of the.
Wow, it's fascinating. It's absolutely because you really don't think about it. You go anywhere and you order a gin and tonic, and you're like, they just make it, and you think, okay, well, there's 3 ingredients, and there's the slice of lemon at the top, and that's it. You've got your ice, you've got your tonic, and you've got your gin.
Yeah.
But there's a heck of a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah, and even how fast do you pour your tonic in? Because if you just ram your tonic into the drink, you will lose the bubbles as well. Then you will lose the texture of the drink, which is resulting in a lesser experience as well. Just with a simple drink as a gin and tonic. Yeah.
So for you, what is your favorite drink, and what is your perfectly balanced drink above and overall?
Well, it sounds funny, but I worked for the Dutch liquor company for 7 years, and one of the products is actually the forefather of gin that we know today as the English gin, and obviously gin is being produced all around the world. But the forefather of gin, the granddaddy, is Genever, and Genever is a local spirit produced in Holland, which is comparable to a whiskey and a gin, but then blended. So it has a lot of flavor of the base material, the grains. So it's really malty and full of flavor. Think of bourbon, maybe bourbon, and then gin, and mix that together. Then you get Genever. And typically in Holland, you drink that as a little headbutt, as they say, which is a small beer and a small Genever, and that's how we drink it. So we call that kopstootje in Holland. So obviously that's not a cocktail, but that's the stuff that I like most. Also, I enjoy a good glass of wine. But when it goes for a cocktail, yeah, gin and tonic is refreshing. When I want to go for something more tropical, I love all rum-based cocktails. I love rum. So yeah, as easy as
I find rum-based cocktails for me is something that really, I don't know, it just springs to mind, places like Hawaii or, the Bahamas or something like that.
Yeah.
It gives you that feel.
Yeah. Well, most places on Hawaii, I've been there 3 weeks for some tropical drink research to different islands. And what I see is they use just the cheap stuff you can get around. I mean, that you can get locally as cheap as possible. But there are a lot of good bars that use quality rum. And the key thing is, what I think, when you make a rum cocktail, either use a few ingredients that you really make the star of the show, the rum itself, or when you start to add more ingredients like herbs and spices, try to use multiple rums into the cocktail. I think you spoke with Eric also about cigars, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, actually, with smoking a cigar as well, if you want to make a cigar complex, you use different leaves to blend together to create that multi-layered flavor profile. The same thing with rum. You can get a light style dry rum, you can get a sticky dark rum, maybe a herbal rum or a grassy rum. Combine those and you got an insane flavor explosion in your mouth. The same thing with hookah and shisha. This is a new study. Hookah and shisha.
That's where I was going to go next, because we were talking about this off air as well, and
yeah,
and I'm looking forward to you telling me about it, because we have hookah bars and shisha bars sort of popping up all over the place. It seems to be one of the latest crazes. But as far as I thought, you just walked in and they had this thing set up and you smoked it, and that was that. But you started telling me, and I'd love for you to let the viewers know how much more can go into setting up a hookah.
Yeah, well, actually, when you talk about multi-layered profiles, as we did with the rum into rum cocktails, with a shisha, actually, if we refer to shisha, depends on which nationality you're from. Shisha usually internationally is specifically the tobacco, right? So the tobacco you call shisha. With the tobacco is tobacco with different flavor profiles, different brands, but from very light to very heavy. Then the tobacco is infused with either honey or molasses, so it needs to be wet. And this is actually what you're smoking in a hookah setup. So they call it a hookah in general. The machine itself is the hookah. But again, different nationalities call it different. So the key thing is to have a bowl. Inside the bowl, you pack the tobacco, and eventually need to put the heat source on top, which is the coals. And the whole key thing is about managing this heat output to the tobacco, because the honey or the molasses is infused with different flavor profiles, mint, grapefruit, even cherry ice cakes and that kind of stuff. But you want to just make sure that tobacco doesn't burn, but that the honey or molasses starts boiling, and then it releases the fog or the smoke, basically, which you collect down eventually in the shisha itself. So, or in the hookah itself. So big machines, the longer it is, the cooler the air will be when it goes out of the hookah, meaning it's going to be very light and easy to smoke, the big puffs of smoke, obviously. So there is also mixology involved with smoking a hookah, and then especially with the tobacco you use. So you can make a mix between flavors. If you look to a good cocktail, it has multi dimensions, right? When you make an apple martini, for example, that's cool when you make an apple martini. But in general, you get the citrusy notes, sweet and sour. You get the apple, you take a sip, it comes and it goes. But if you want to make this multi-dimensional, you can start playing around with white pepper in there, or maybe some mint or cinnamon, just to add herbs with the fruits, because then you get that multi-layered profile. When making the hookah setup, it's the same thing. You use different types of tobacco. Either you mix it in the bowl, or you make layers. That the longer you smoke, the more the flavor will change from very minty to very fruity or even nutty notes, depending on your session length of smoking the hookah. So that's one thing of flavor mixology in the hookah setup. Second is the bowl itself, where you pack the tobacco in. You can use pineapples, coconuts, mangoes, dragon fruits. You can go as crazy if you want. Oranges. Just make sure when you cut it in half, or at least the top off, you hollow it out in the same shape as that most bowls come with. You make a little roster inside so the tobacco doesn't fall into the hookah and into the water reservoir, the vase. So that's one layer of flavor. Tobacco is there. Then the length of the pipe that goes into the water reservoir also is important. The longer it is, the cooler the air will get. And if you want to make it even more cooler, then take the vase or the vase and add ice in there, and then water. So you create an ice pipe, so it becomes even more soft and cooler. If you want to make it more rich, because your guests are having a creamy dessert, for instance, when they have dessert after dinner and would like to smoke the hookah as well, you can add milk, like 1/3 of milk in the vase, sorry for my English, 2/3 of water, otherwise it will become too bubbly, but it will get very creamy, smoky texture. For people who want to go crazy, you can pour absinthe in there as well, or wine, or you can put fruit juice or fresh fruits, or a lot of people love flavored water. Just get a water, put ginger in there, mint, oranges, maybe some cloves if you like that, and add that into the vase. And it's super visual as well, so it looks super cool. It flavors the smoke, and it's even more cooler when the whole setup is of glass, so you can really see what's going on. And then when you chuck LED lights under the hookah, then you got a big show as well for a guest to see. So, and it's a lot more complicated than that, because your heat management system on top, making sure that the hookah doesn't taste harsh in the throat, or that people start coughing or experiencing different flavors. You need to maintain the hookah throughout the whole smoking session. So it's fun. And it's, for me, it all, everything is related to each other. When you make a good cocktail, think of layers and flavor. When you make a good dish, same thing. When you set up a hookah for your guests, same thing.
fascinating. I mean, it actually to me now sounds like a lot of work.
It is. I mean, obviously, you can not try and just throw in the tobacco and just pack it and put the coals on top and serve it to the guest. But this is not what we want to do. We talk about 7-star service, right? We want to really take it to the next level, understand the guests, understand the emotions, the moments that they have at that moment, and use your tools, your cards in your deck that you have, because the cards you have while serving guests is a good drink, fast service, a good specialized setup, customized for your guests as well. I think it's just a very, very cool tool, yeah, to live up to the standards and create memorable guest experiences.
When is the shisha traditionally used then? Is it something that people will sit around? Is it normally an after dinner thing, or is it any time during the day? I'm not even really sure what the whole context of having a shisha is or what the purpose is.
Well, the purpose really is that it's considered, in some countries, it is considered rude if you do not give your guests tea when they come. So when you don't serve tea, then because tea is also one of the things that we train a lot on, that I train a lot on, is one of my biggest passion, by the way, tea. But the hookah setup really is for social gatherings, during business meetings, during family gatherings, during it's really a social thing that people do to show acceptance and to show that it's a part of hospitality, really, in most Eastern cultures as well. But actually, it spread the whole world because people migrate, obviously, throughout the world. Russia, there is a big hookah company. Even LA, Los Angeles has a big hookah community there as well. Obviously, Middle East. And even Asia now, you get crazy designs of the whole new setups, and people are reinventing and reinventing. And believe it or not, Germany nowadays, they are leaders in the craziest setups. If we talk about hookah, they really take it to the next level. Has nothing to do anymore with the traditional Egyptian styles hookahs, etc. So, yeah.
Wow, it's fascinating. Everything that you talk about, it is something I think that, mainstream people straight across the board, we just do not have, honestly, do not have a clue about what goes into doing everything that you do.
It's a lot of study, but again, if you have passion for what you do, then studying becomes a lot more easy. It's just so interested in everything, and especially when you can take that knowledge and that skills to create those memorable guest experiences, and you can combine this even in a training or just when I'm serving guests, because sometimes I do bar shifts as well, or I still do some events, and then it's all about working your butt off, basically, just to get people wowed all the time, So this is a big
Well, and
job.
you mentioned something about tea as well. So, I mean, I know that there is, just around the corner from me here, there's this amazing tea shop that has loose tea, and there's probably like, I don't know, 300 different varieties that
Many.
in some place, this is to help treat this, and this is to help treat that, and this is for this flavor, and this is for breakfast, and it's quite confusing. I mean, to be honest, it's a bit like wine for me. I don't have a clue. Just give me something light.
Yeah. Well, again, the cool thing is tea is there for thousands of years. It's a drink started in China, basically. But besides water, the second most drunk beverage in the world is tea, believe it or not. And all the different types of tea that you have, white, green, yellow tea is one of them as well, sun tea, oolong teas, black teas, pu'er teas, you got smoky teas, you got infusion with lavender, you got the Earl Grey tea as well. What is Earl Grey? Earl Grey basically is black tea, but it's infused with bergamot oil. It's a citrus fruit native to Italy, which makes an Earl Grey an Earl Grey. But in general, all the tea that you see out there comes from one plant, right? Or actually it's a bush. It's a tree called the Camellia sinensis, which is the tea plant or the tea bush, basically. Usually when you just leave it grow in the nature, it becomes 2.5, 3 meters high, but then it's really hard to pluck the leaves from it. So people tend to keep it low at waist height, so it stays a bush and it's easy to harvest. But yeah, you pluck the tea, and no matter how you treat it, because the moment that you start crushing the leaves slightly, then it releases bacteria. And the bacteria, when you leave the bacteria on it, you will get the same thing as that when you take a banana and you just leave it in your window in the sunshine. After a while, it becomes from green, it goes to yellow. From yellow, it goes to brown, and then it eventually becomes black, the banana. But this is the oxidization process. In the tea world, they also call it fermentation. So fermented tea is basically oxidized tea. And the main difference between a green tea and a black tea, for instance, a green tea is you pluck the leaf, you make sure there is a lot of moisture going out because otherwise it's too crisp, and you break the cells in the tea. And when you talk about the tea leaf, it's a high plant, and on the top, what you want to collect basically is 2 leaves and the bud, so just the top part, right? So when you think of a mint sprig, the top part of the mint is the part that the plant has to work the hardest, because that's the part that needs to grow open. So also with mint, the most aroma of the mint is only in the tops, the leaves as well, but the top is super concentrated. With tea, the cool thing about that is that inside these 2 leaves and the bud, the top part, 85% of the plant's energy and antioxidants are in there. And the antioxidants, also known as polyphenols, these are super, super healthy for your body. I mean, I can give you a list of at least 35 different reasons why to drink tea, because again, it's super good for the body. And when you take 2 leaves in the bud, take it out. If you want to stop this oxidizing process, you need to heat it up to kill the bacteria. So green tea basically is you pluck the 2 leaves in the bud, get rid of the water inside, roll it up so the leaf stays fresh for a much longer time. And with black tea, you let the oxidization start going on and on and on, and then it becomes black. Flavor profile changes as well. And then it's actually the same process of packaging and sorting the different grades, etc. How can I say this in a nutshell? You know, it's super diverse, it's super cool, one plant, super healthy, but, and I have to say this really, but, I think 80% of the yachts that I trained, most tea is just horrible in quality on board. And it's just, it's unbelievable. Most of them again. And why? Because it's the tea bags. The tea bags, they contain something which we call dust. And dust is just the small particles of the leaf. And what you want to have as much as that leaf still available. When you add hot water, the leaf should open up again and release aromas, release flavors and all those oils, which makes the tea interesting and multi-dimensional. And also those polyphenols, the antioxidants, they come out. In bag tea, usually with the big brands, I'm not going to call a lot of brands because maybe they will hate me for this. What they do is, put it into the bag, it's dry, and the moment that they start harvesting the plants, they do it with big machines, so not hand-picked. So not only the 2 leaves and the bud will go into your tea bag, but a big part of the plant as well, right? So quality goes down. When you have this dust, it's bold, it's one-dimensional flavors. And if you talk about an Earl Grey tea, which normally has an infusion of bergamot oils, everybody who's watching, guys, try to open up a bag at once, and especially Earl Grey or lavender tea or whatever. You will actually, when you open up the tea bag, you will see small white particles of glucose sugar pearls, as they call it, which is chemically compounded flavoring essences that they add to the tea, which you have 1,000 flavors. It's mainly chemically infused into the tea. So it just doesn't give you the whole essence of what tea is really about. So, yeah.
Do you know what? I don't think most people know that, because there's a lot of people that are really, really health conscious that drink tea. And today we're probably letting them know that if they open those tea bags, they'll find that they are actually sugar.
Yeah, chemically created sugar pearls, as they call it, or flakes, or just try to open up a bag for once and just see how the quality of the tea is. And obviously, when you go to a general supermarket and you see these big brands lined up, it's in euro, it's €2.5 for 20 bags or something, but it's just impossible to get that quality for that money. So at least go for double the amount, go for at least, I don't know, €5 to €6 per 20 tea bags, because there are tea bags which still have the long leaves, and especially when you add water, then the whole pyramid sack is just filled up because everything expanded big time, and it really is releasing all those flavors and essential antioxidants. So, but there's a lot of different things going on in the tea world. But that's about the tea. The thing is, why am I so passionate about tea is in 2013 I did a competition, and it's a 21st century take on the English high tea, right? The high tea with different teas, with different food items, savory and sweet. I did a competition, became European champion in 2013. And I went to Sri Lanka twice to visit the tea fields and to join the world's the global competition, which was really cool. I got a silver medal, which was awesome as well. But I learned so much about those different tea servings and tea pairings, with alcohol, without alcohol, warm and cold. But if you talk about the world of tea in general, you got the quality of tea, obviously, but then even the water that you use. I mean, 98% of your glass is just water. And some people use the most horrible water that there is, right? In general, when you talk about water for a tea, you need to have a pH level of 7, so it needs to be neutral. A very low TDS, total dissolved solids, in there, because when your water tastes like, I don't know, chlorine or stuff like this, it really alters the flavor of your tea. So water is important. Even how long you boil it. If you take your water and you boil it once and it goes to the boil, you should switch off the water boiler and use this, because there's still oxygen inside the water that can extract all those flavors from the tea. When you boil it twice or you boil it a lot longer, there's no oxygen left in the water anymore, and you're left over with a soggy extraction. Also, how long do you extract your tea? Because at least with black tea, 3 to 5 minutes. If you take your glass and it's not 100 degrees Celsius, which you should have, and you just take the tea bag, put it in and put it out, like most people, and just chuck the tea bag away because they like the tea light, it's just flavored water, really. There's no antioxidants in there. There's nothing really that resembles good tea. So when you don't like strong tea, just get some small amount of water, make that extraction at least 3 to 5 minutes, and then top it up again with hot water. This is how the Russians do it in their samovars, their big water cookers, for instance. But that's for the water part, extraction time. And then you also have the condiments, with what type of honey. If you take a honey which is super flowery, for instance, it can overpower the tea. So you will ruin the whole spirit of the tea by adding wrong condiments. Cold milk is also not a good thing to add to your tea, because your drinking temperature of tea should be around 65 degrees Celsius. And when you add, cold milk to your tea, or even cold milk in hot water and then your tea bag, then again, temperature is not good. But I can talk about this for hours, but it's a fascinating.
You know what? I'm not even I'm a coffee drinker, and I'm not even gonna ask you about coffee, because I am now gonna have to have a nap after this interview, just because so many of those things that I assumed were so simple have now become so complicated. But it's fascinating. I mean, it's like I've said before, there's so many things that you just don't quite think about, I guess, when you have a cup of tea, or when you have that cocktail, or when you walk into a shisha bar. None of these things, you realize how much thought, time, effort, education, and all of the other things, passion, love, goes into the creation of any of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. But again, it's just one of the tools that we have to serve our guests, because it's a people business, obviously, that we're working in. I mean, you can go to a bar, have a bad drink, but have the time of your life, and then you would still go back to this bar. Yeah. When you go to a bar and you got the perfect drink and but the staff is just rude and uninterested, then you're like, you know what, never mind. So the drink always comes second or third. It's you as a person serving the guests is step number one always. Yeah.
Well, it's absolutely fascinating. And I think, especially in yachting, where service is the utmost. I mean, it is, you have a yacht that is worth millions, billions. When you're on board, you expect to be treated better than anywhere.
Yeah.
So, when you're starting, I'm sure that you have a lot to say about coffee as well. Please don't tell me, because I will never look at my coffee the same.
We'll leave that on the side. That's fine.
You can train about coffee to somebody else, but please don't ruin my humble morning coffee.
That's fine.
But I mean, the fact is, what you are able to teach people with all of these things, and I'm sure, even those that have been in the yachting industry for many years aren't quite aware of, something as simple as tea being so complicated.
That's what I get also when we do the tea training on board or on shore. Obviously, because of COVID, we have some restrictions. And is my internet connection still good or not?
No, you're good.
Yeah, okay, because I'm seeing a few spots here and there. When we do training on shore or on board, the reaction that we get from the students are like mind-blowing. They're like, what? I'm drinking this cup of tea every day, and now actually I'm going to take a whole different approach on making that cup of tea. Obviously nowadays we can't really visit, so we do online training a lot, especially with the new trainings for bartending and tea as well coming up, shisha as well. But the reaction that we get always from everybody is like, damn, I didn't know. So yeah.
Well, that's exactly, yeah. I mean, that's exactly my reaction as well. I mean, damn.
Yeah.
It is quite extensive.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I would actually really like for you to possibly at some point in the future come back on board and maybe do some demonstrations for us. Simple things, simple tips and tricks that people could possibly use that, just in their everyday lives.
Cool. Sounds really fun.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Let's make it work.
The audience would enjoy it, and I think it's a great way to sort of show a little bit for those of us that don't have the appreciation. And I think it gives the education out there that, there are things that you can do differently, and there is more that goes into what it is that we do than you may even realize or have never realized and may never realize. But at least it will give us all, a glimpse.
Surely, yeah, obviously, yeah. And again, it's a lot of fun as well, because not only when you're working, all the things that you can learn, basically, you can adapt into your personal life as well, making yourself drinks or serving guests at your own house. So yeah, cool.
Well, I don't have guests, so we're good there. But my cooking would kill. And now apparently my tea making kills. So we're going to have to get some tips and tricks on that. Rob, you've been absolutely amazing. And, I have to say it's been really interesting talking to you because you've sort of highlighted so many things that I didn't have a clue about. And I have a feeling that I probably could interview you a few more times and still get some more interesting advice. So we will definitely make sure that we are in touch and have a chat about how we can do some demos of some different things right here on Yachting International Radio.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Ria, for the interview as well.
Once again, everybody, you have been watching another edition of Coffee and Conversation right here on Yachting International Radio. This has been Rob Rademaker.
You got it
right. Yeah. From Luxury Hospitality Management. He is bartending, mixology. He's a specialist trainer, as well as hookah and shisha, tea, coffee, you name it. So definitely, we will make sure that we provide the information underneath the interview if you need to get a hold of him or are interested in having him come on board your yacht or your private villa for some specialist training. My name is Ria. I have been your host. Please tune in again for another episode.